Hello and welcome to PowerPoint 2019-365 Domain 5.0 Hands-on Exercise Answer Key. So at this point you should have a PowerPoint Domain 5 folder on your desktop. Let's open that file up and see what's inside. Looks like we have a PowerPoint presentation and some instructions. I'm going to start with the instructions. That always seems like a good place to start. So you should have already downloaded the practice files and saved them to a folder. I did it. Nice work. Now we're going to open the presentation file and arrange your windows so we can see them both. And once again, there is a how-to video that goes into detail on this. I'm going to do the quick and dirty version. I will just use the the restore down button to pop this into a window. I will squeeze it down until the ruler or the ribbon disappears. And then I will open up my presentation. And I will do the same thing here. I will pop it into a smaller window. I'll get rid of this fella here, and I will resize it until I can see both of these here. I'm going to close the notes pane on my PowerPoint to give myself just a little bit more room, and I will scroll down here through my instructions and see where we land. So we've already done number 2. So number 3 instructs us to navigate to slide number 1, which is this Learning Circles for Independent Students slide. We're going to apply the transition gallery. So let's go to the Transitions tab here, and we will open up this pane, and we will find the Gallery Transition. It's in the Exciting group. Go ahead and select that. We apply it to this slide. We want to select the transition effect from left. So still on my Transitions tab, I'm going to go to my Effect Options button right here, and I'm going to choose From Left, which makes the slide in from the left. I will set the duration to 1.25 seconds. So still on the Transitions tab, in the Timing group now, under Duration, I'm going to pop it on down to 1.25. B, Apply to All. Okay, right here under Timing, I can apply that transition to everybody. Now, C says to remove this transition from only slide number 1. So slide number 1 is still selected here. I'm going to expand my gallery of transition options, and I'm just going to choose None, just for slide number 1. And you will see that little star disappeared here, implying there is no transition on slide 1 anymore. Awesome. I'm going to do a file and a save as. And I do a save as because I want to keep a clean copy of this PowerPoint in case I want to play around with it later. So I'll just do an in-progress version here so that I can always come back and redo this exercise if I want to from scratch. So let's come back to my instructions and scroll down to instruction number 4. Navigate to slide number 2. Okay. Here's slide number 2. Apply the grow and turn entrance animation to each rounded square. Okay, we can do this a couple of different ways. I'm going to do it probably the most elementary way, and we'll get into some other options later. So I'm just going to select the first square and go to the animations and apply, what did it say, grow and turn? Okay, I'll choose grow and turn, and there it is. Then I will apply the same thing to the second square. Grow and turn. I'll select the third square, grow and turn, and the fourth square, grow and turn. So now each one of these squares has the grow and turn entrance animation applied to it. We want to set the start and timing options to produce the following result. The first square appears when I click. It appears on a click. The second square should appear automatically 0.5 seconds after the first square does. The third square should appear automatically 0.5 seconds after the second square does. And the fourth square will appear automatically 0.5 seconds after the third. The easiest way to do this, I could just select each one of these and come on up here and work with this. The easiest thing to do, though, is to select the animation pane to open it up. And right now, just visually, you can see that these all happen at the same time and take the same amount of time. So this first one, if we select this one, you'll see that it starts on a click. Sure enough, it lasts 1 second and it is not delayed. I click it and it happens. So let's move on to number 2. The idea is we want this one to appear automatically, meaning I don't have to click, and I want it to come in 0.5 seconds after the first one. So this is kind of a fine point here. Under Start, we have 3 options. On click, which means I click and it happens, with previous or after previous. Kind of a fine slice here, but with previous means it starts when the previous one starts. After previous means it starts when the previous one finishes. right? So this duration, this lasts 1 second. And what if what I want is for the slide to come in, finish its grow and turn, and then half a second later, the next one starts to come in. And when it finishes, half a second later, the next one comes in. I'm going to want to choose after previous for the second one. And I'm going to say delay it by half a second. So as soon as this one is finished, wait half a second and then bring me the next one. And you can see now that this one is starting right when this one finishes with that little gap in the middle. So now I'm going to select this one and I'm going to apply the same thing. Start after the previous, wait 0.5 seconds. Select this last one, start after previous, and wait half a second. And now if I expand this animation pane a little bit, you can see just by looking here that these are all spaced out and they have just a little gap in between them, which is what I want. So I'm going to collapse this again so that I don't have to spend so much of my screen on it. In fact, I can just close it. And then I'm going to hit my preview here. And that one comes in, pause, pause, pause. All right, and if you want to be super sure that you're getting it exactly the way you want it, you can click this Start from this slide button here. And now we jump into this slide. Now the first square is not going to come until I click to tell it, so I'll go ahead and click. And here comes the first one, and I'm no longer clicking. Small pause, and each of them just pops in the way I want. Awesome. So I'm going to hit my escape, and we're going to move on. I'm going to save my work, though, because I'm doing great. Okay, step number 5, navigate to slide number 3, which is this one right here, my little overwhelmed monster on it. First thing we want to do here is open the animation pane and observe that an animation already exists on this slide. So I'm going to go to the Animations tab. I'm going to open the animation pane, and sure enough, there is something happening here already. I don't need to do anything with that right now. I just had to observe that it's there. Now, select the 3D model on this slide and apply the 3D animation Arrive. All right, so this is my 3D model. Under Animations, when I'm working with a 3D model, you will notice I get an extra row of 3D animations up here, and I want to use Arrive. So I'll go ahead and click on that one. Now my librarian rolls on in. I want to set this animation to start without a mouse click. It's just going to start automatically. So while I still have her selected, I'm going to come up here to Start, and I'm going to say Start after the previous. So whenever the previous one finishes up, just jump right in. Don't even have to delay. All right. Last thing I want here is to reorder the animations on this slide so the 3D animation you just applied is first in line. So notice it's second here, right? Because this first one already existed when we got here. So now here is the 3D model that I applied. I want it to be first in line. So I can do a couple of things here. I'm going to open up my animation pane just a little bit. I could just click and drag this animation up to the top of the list, and it'll drop wherever that red bar lives. Or I can just select the animation and use the up and down arrows to move it around. So I can bump it to the top of the list just by using the up arrow right there. All right, so that was C. Let's go to number 6. Now we're going to move to slide number 4. On this slide, we're going to select the text placeholder in the middle of this slide. So this text placeholder right here. And we're going to apply the entrance animation Swivel. All right, so here's the animations. And let's scroll down a little bit. There's Swivel. And this is what Swivel does. See how each of the words kind of swivels on its center axis, just like that? So the instructions are continued below. Let's take a look and see what happens. I want to apply each of the available effect options and observe how this changes the way the content appears on the screen. Okay, now with many of these entrance animations, it's really kind of hard to tell what these effect options do when you have these 3 options. Right now, this by paragraph means that each one of these with a hard return underneath it is considered a paragraph. And so this comes in paragraph by paragraph, 1 word at a time, as you just observed. If I said bring this in as one object using this swivel effect, watch what happens. So now it's like the entire text box, right? Like if I click on this, here's the entire text box. The entire text box now is swiveling on a single center axis. So I'll preview it again so you can see that. It's like the whole text box itself is spinning. So that's what as one object looks like. If I said all at once, it's going to treat each of these paragraphs, each of these words as its own object, and it's each going to swivel on its own center axis. So they still come in at the same time, but they're not spinning like they're one box. They're spinning like 4 individual words. So again, it's a fine slice, but see if you can spot it. See the way they swivel was just a little bit different? I'll preview it again so you can see that. So now the center point around which they're swiveling is just a little bit different. Like the accountability, the longest one, the center is way out there. And you can just keep replaying that until you really feel like you grab what it really means. Choose the effect option that causes each word to arrive separately. In our case, that is going to be by paragraph. And each one comes in all by itself. Feels like a good time to save my work. And we'll move on to step number 7. Navigate to slide 5. Okay? We're going to apply the morph transition to this slide using the handshake icon as the object. So I'm going to select this object here, this handshake icon, and I'm going to go to the Transitions tab. And you notice the gallery transition is already on here, right? Because we applied this gallery transition to everything. I'm going to override that. I'm going to go ahead and apply a different transition just to this slide. So I'll navigate all the way up to the top of my gallery, and I will choose the morph slide transition. And that does this cool 3D thing that kind of calls out this object that is in common on both slides. This handshake to this handshake. And the reason it does that is because the effect option is defaulting to objects. And so it's looking for an object in common on this slide and the slide before it. Let's go down to the next step, which is navigate to slide 6, which is this accountability slide. We're going to apply the morph transition again, but this time we're going to use the characters effect option. So let's go ahead and get all the way up to the top, and we'll choose morph, and it looks like nothing particularly interesting happened, which it didn't because there are no objects in common on both of these slides. But if we go to the effect options and choose characters as instructed, it takes any letters that are in common in this center placeholder and slides them into their new location on this new slide and makes that kind of cool transition. So I'll show that to you again. We go from community to accountability. Very cool. The next thing we're going to do is navigate to slide number 7. So here's slide number 7. We're going to apply the morph transition again, but this time we're going to use the third effect option, which is the words. So again, notice slide number 6 has a learning circle on this slide and a learning circle on this slide. So when I come up to the Transitions tab and I come all the way up to here and I go to Morph, if I go to the Effect options and choose Words, it takes those words that appear on both slides and seamlessly slides them into place. So that's kind of cool. But that is only the first thing I'm doing to this slide. I still have to go to step B here and select the paper airplane icon and do a bunch of stuff. So let's select that paper airplane icon. I'm going to apply the entrance animation fly in. All right, so let's go to animations and let's choose fly in. And see how it flies in from the bottom. We want to choose the effect option from left. So while this is still selected, we're going to go to the effect options and choose from left. And now it flies in from the left. We want to set this animation to begin automatically 1 second after the previous. So up here in the timing, I'm going to say after previous and set the delay to 1 second. Okay. Did that. So now we're going to apply an additional animation motion path arc. So I already have one animation on here. If I choose another animation from this menu, it's just going to replace the one that's on there already. If I want to layer on a couple of different animations to a single object, I apply the first one using this menu. I apply the second one using this Add Animation button. So this time, I want to apply an additional animation, a motion path, and I want to use the motion path arcs. And it's going to do that for me. Gives me a tiny little arc side to side. So we applied that motion path arc to move the paper airplane from one side of the slide to the other. Great. Now we want to change the arc path as necessary so that the paper airplane lands near the right side of the slide. So right now my paper airplane is centered under here. I want to finish it so that it's centered over here. So I'm just going to grab these resizing handles and I'm going to drag this over here so that it's kind of centered right underneath that one. And if I want to make it a little bit bigger, a little more of an arc, I can just drag that resizing handle down. So let's just preview that real quick, see what that looks like. Awesome, okay. I want to set this animation duration to 2 seconds. The duration, it's already at 2 seconds, that's great, but now I want to apply the chime sound effect. So in order to get at that, this one here, I'm going to go to Effect Options, and I'm going to come down here to Sound, and I'm going to choose Chime. Okay, and there it goes. Now, my paper airplane landed a little bit too far to the right, so I'm going to shrink this path just a smidge. Okay, great. Now we're going to play the slideshow from the beginning to ensure that the presentation reflects our instructions. So let's give it a go. Play from the beginning is right here. You know what? I'm going to save my work. Okay, here we are. I click to transition, and here are my, my 4 squares. Remember, the first one's going to come in on a click, so I click, and the rest should come in automatically at a short little interval. Super. Okay, so I click to advance. And now my 3D monster came in automatically. And she was the first animation on this slide. The balls bounced in all by themselves, which we did not have to do anything with. That existed before we got here. But you need to make sure the monster comes in first, and then the balls bounce in, because we had that step reordering those animations, right? So let's advance with a click. And now we've got this one. When I click, the first word comes in. And remember, we asked for these to come in one at a time, so I'm going to have to click to bring in each of them on that swivel. Every time I click, a new word comes in. So I can talk about each of these as I'm ready to talk about them. And in my presentation, of course, I want to take these one by one. So my next click will take me to that morph transition where I talk about community. And my next click is again going to use that morph transition, but instead of using the hand object, it's going to take the letters out of community and put them into wherever they belong for accountability. And then my next one is going to move into that last slide that we dealt with the paper airplane on it. And this time I'm going to use the words for my morph transition. So there's the airplane, it comes in. And when I am ready to talk about the airplane, I give it a single click. And it slides across the screen with its chime. And there's my last slide, and I am out of here. All right, that was exactly how we wanted it. So if you have any discrepancies with your slideshow where it doesn't look like ours, or you can't figure out how to make things work the way you think they should, don't hesitate to reach out. We're always here to help you. Otherwise, that was the last domain and the last hands-on exercise. You have one context project to go, and then it's time to get testing. So good luck out there.